Welcome to the lands of science fiction stories. I wish you a pleasant listening experience. In the year 2456, Earth had become a beacon of peace and technological advancement, drawing the attention of various extraterrestrial civilizations. However, none were as formidable and feared as the Calvo Empire, a race of amphibious beings from the oceanic world of Calvonus. Known for their conquests and advanced biological warfare, the Calvo were the ultimate predators of the cosmos. Captain Ro Caden, a decorated officer of the United Terran Defense Force, stared at the main screen of the Orion, his command ship. Before him, a holographic projection of a Calvo emissary, tall and sleek with bioluminescent skin and piercing eyes, delivered the ultimatum: "Surrender your world or face the Aquam Dominus. Your waters will be our dominion." The Aquam Dominus, as the emissary explained, was a bioengineered weapon capable of infiltrating any organic system through water. Once inside a host, it could reprogram DNA, transforming the host into a Calvo thrall. The concept was terrifying. The Calvo had developed a means to conquer entire civilizations without a single battle, simply by tainting their water supplies. RHO's crew exchanged uneasy glances. The Calvo's reputation was known far and wide. Their conquests were always swift and decisive, yet surrender was not an option. Humanity had fought too hard to reach the stars to bend the knee now. "We will never submit," Ro declared, his voice unwavering. "Earth is not yours to take. Prepare to face our resistance." With the emissary's image flickering out, Ro turned to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Zara Nix. "Contact the Council. We need to prepare our defenses, and gather the science team. We need to know everything there is to know about this Aquam Dominus." The days that followed were a blur of preparations and strategizing. The Calvo fleet loomed on the outskirts of the solar system, a menacing reminder of the impending threat. The United Terran Defense Force mobilized every available resource, but the shadow of the Aquam Dominus hung over them like a dark cloud. Dr. Jalen Veris, a leading expert in xenobiology, worked tirelessly in his lab aboard the Orion. Alongside him was Dr. Alara Kess, a brilliant scientist known for her unorthodox methods. The two of them analyzed the limited data they had on the Aquam Dominus, trying to devise a way to counteract its effects. "It's a liquid-based organism, adaptable and highly invasive," Jalen muttered, studying the molecular structure on his holoscreen. "It can reprogram DNA at an unprecedented rate. If we can't find a way to neutralize it, the Calvo could turn our own people against us." Alara leaned back in her chair, her brow furrowed in thought. "What if we turn their weapon against them?" Jalen looked at her surprised. "What do you mean?" "Instead of neutralizing it, we use it. If we can find a way to control the transformation, we could create a new kind of soldier. A human-Calvo hybrid that can withstand the Aquam Dominus and fight back." Ro, who had been quietly listening, stepped forward. "You mean to say we let this thing into us willingly?" Alara nodded. "It's risky, but it could give us the edge we need. The Calvo won't expect us to use their own weapon against them. If we succeed, we could infiltrate their ranks, gather intelligence, and strike where they least expect it." Ro considered the proposal. It was dangerous, bordering on madness, but desperate times called for desperate measures. "Do it," he ordered. "Prepare a test subject. I'll do it myself if necessary." Captain Ro Caden stood in the center of the lab, his heart pounding in his chest. Around him, scientists moved with a sense of urgency, preparing for the unprecedented experiment. Before him was a containment chamber filled with a shimmering blue liquid, the Aquam Dominus. Jalen and Alara stood by, monitoring the equipment. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" Jalen asked, concern etched on his face. Ro nodded. "If humanity is to survive, we need to understand this weapon. If that means becoming a part of it, so be it." Taking a deep breath, Ro stepped into the chamber. The cold liquid enveloped him, seeping into his skin, filling his lungs. Pain shot through his body as the Aquam Dominus began its work, reprogramming his cells. Every fiber of his being screamed in agony, but Ro held on, his willpower driving him to endure. Minutes felt like hours, but slowly the pain subsided. Ro opened his eyes, feeling a surge of power coursing through his veins. He was different. Stronger, faster, more aware. The Aquam Dominus had transformed him, but he was still himself. Stepping out of the chamber, Ro looked at his reflection. His eyes glowed with a faint blue light. His skin had a slight iridescent sheen. He was a hybrid, a fusion of human and Calvo biology. Jalen and Ilara looked at him in awe. "Captain, you did it," Ilara breathed. "You're the first of a new kind." Ro clenched his fists, feeling the power within. "Now we fight back," he said. "Prepare the Hydro Commandos. It's time to take the battle to the Calvo." The Calvo fleet descended upon Earth, their ships darkening the skies. The air was thick with tension as the United Terran Defense Force prepared for battle. At the forefront stood the Hydro Commandos, a team of elite soldiers infused with the Aquam Dominus, ready to confront the invaders. Ro led the charge, his enhanced abilities making him a force to be reckoned with. The Calvo, expecting an easy victory, were taken aback by the ferocity of the human resistance. The Hydro Commandos moved with precision and power, cutting through the Calvo ranks like a blade through water. The battle raged on, fierce and unrelenting. Ro fought with everything he had, pushing his new abilities to their limits. The Calvo were formidable, their advanced technology and biological prowess making them deadly opponents. But the Hydro Commandos were relentless, driven by the will to protect their home. As the battle reached its peak, Ro and his team made their way to the heart of the Calvo forces, the command center where the Aquam Dominus was being controlled. With a final desperate push, they broke through the defenses, confronting the Calvo leaders. In the center of the room stood the Calvo Emperor, a towering figure with an air of authority. He sneered at Ro, his eyes gleaming with malice. "You think you can defy the Calvo?" he spat. "You are but insects before our power." Ro raised his weapon, his gaze steady. "We're more than you bargained for," he replied. With a swift motion he fired, the shot hitting its mark. The Emperor fell, his reign ending in a burst of light. With the death of their leader, the Calvo forces faltered. The Hydro Commandos pressed the advantage, driving the invaders back. The battle was won, but at a cost. The battlefield was littered with the fallen, both human and Calvo. The aftermath of the battle was a somber affair. Earth had been saved, but the scars of the conflict were deep. The survivors mourned their losses, rebuilding from the ruins left in the wake of the Calvo invasion. Captain Ro Caden stood on the bridge of the Orion looking out at the stars. The war had changed him both physically and mentally. He was no longer just a man. He was a symbol of humanity's resilience, a testament to their ability to adapt and overcome. The Aquam Dominus had been a weapon of fear, but Ro and his team had turned it into a tool of hope. The Hydro Commandos had proven that even the greatest of threats could be faced with courage and ingenuity. As the sun rose over a recovering Earth, Ro knew that the fight was not over. There would be other threats, other challenges. But humanity was ready. They had faced the unimaginable and emerged stronger. Ro turned to his crew, a sense of determination in his eyes. "We've shown the galaxy what we're capable of," he said. "Now, let's make sure they never forget it." With that, the Orion set its course for the stars, a beacon of hope in the vastness of space, ready to face whatever the universe had to offer. Months had passed since the Calvo invasion, yet the impact of the conflict still reverberated across the galaxy. News of Earth's victory against the seemingly invincible Calvo spread like wildfire, earning humanity newfound respect and wariness from other interstellar civilizations. The Hydro Commandos, once a desperate gamble, had become a symbol of resilience and a new standard in military might. On Earth, rebuilding efforts were underway. Cities scarred by battle were being restored, and the United Terran Defense Force was stronger than ever. But for Captain Ro Caden, peace felt like a distant memory. He often found himself in the quiet of his quarters, contemplating the transformation he had undergone. The Aquam Dominus had changed him, not just physically, but emotionally. He felt a constant pull, a connection to the water that coursed through his veins, a whisper of the Calvo's ancient knowledge. One evening, Ro received an unexpected visitor, Dr. Ilara Kess. She had been instrumental in developing the Hydro Commandos, and her brilliance had not gone unnoticed. The Council had offered her a prominent position in the new scientific division, a role that could shape the future of human-alien relations. "Ro," Ilara greeted him, her expression serious. "We need to talk. It's about the Aquam Dominus." Ro raised an eyebrow, his interest piqued. "What about it? We proved we could control it. We've used it to protect Earth." Ilara sighed, taking a seat. "That's just it. The Aquam Dominus is more than a weapon. It's a living entity, with a consciousness we barely understand. I've been studying the samples we retrieved from the Calvo Command Center. There's more to it than we thought." Ro leaned forward, his gaze intense. "What are you saying, Ilara?" "I'm saying it's evolving," Ilara replied. "The Aquam Dominus is adapting, learning. It could potentially outgrow our control. And if it does, we could be facing a threat even greater than the Calvo." The revelation hit Ro like a punch to the gut. The very thing that had saved them could also doom them. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice steady. Ilara met his gaze, determination in her eyes. "We need to understand it fully. We need to work with it, not against it. I propose we establish a research division dedicated to studying the Aquam Dominus to harness its potential safely and ethically. With your permission, I want to lead it." Ro nodded slowly. "Do it, but make sure you keep me updated. We can't afford any surprises." Ilara smiled, a hint of relief in her expression. "Thank you, Ro. I promise I'll do everything I can to ensure it's used for the good of humanity." As Ilara left, Ro stared out at the vast expanse of space. The battle was over, but the war was far from done. New challenges lay ahead, new threats lurking in the shadows. But with allies like Ilara, Ro knew they were ready to face whatever came next. The months that followed were marked by a tense calm. Earth's recovery was progressing well, but beneath the surface, preparations were underway. The newly formed Xenobiology Research Division, led by Dr. Ilara Kess, was hard at work understanding the complexities of the Aquam Dominus. Their goal was to unlock its secrets, to turn it from a potential threat into a cornerstone of humanity's future. In the meantime, Captain Ro Caden found himself at the center of a growing coalition of interstellar allies. The victory over the Calvo had drawn the attention of other species who had suffered under the Empire's tyranny. From the insectoid Krylon to the crystalline Shalkri, races that once viewed humanity with indifference now sought their alliance. Ro stood on the observation deck of the Orion, overlooking the bustling spaceport. Ships of various designs and origins were docked, their crews mingling, sharing knowledge and culture. It was a sight that filled him with a sense of hope. "Captain," Lieutenant Zara Nix's voice broke his reverie, "we've received a transmission from the Krylon delegation. They have information that might interest us." Ro turned, his curiosity piqued. "Let's hear it." In the briefing room, Ro and Zara met with the Krylon ambassador, a tall, slender being with multifaceted eyes and delicate wings. "Captain Caden," the ambassador began, his voice a harmonious chime, "we bring news of a new threat. The remnants of the Calvo Empire have regrouped. They are consolidating their forces and seeking allies among the darker corners of the galaxy." RHO's jaw tightened. He had expected the Calvo to retaliate, but not so soon. "What are they planning?" The ambassador's wings fluttered, a sign of unease. "They are seeking a weapon, one even more powerful than the Aquam Dominus. A relic of their past, lost to time. If they find it, they could unleash a devastation unlike anything we have seen." Ro exchanged a glance with Zara. The situation was escalating faster than they had anticipated. "Do you have any idea where this weapon is?" Ro asked. The ambassador nodded. "We have intercepted communications that suggest it's located in the Veil Nebula, a place few dare to venture. It's a graveyard of ancient civilizations filled with dangers and mysteries." Ro considered their options. The Veil Nebula was a notoriously hazardous region, but if the Calvo were after this weapon, they couldn't afford to wait. "Thank you for this information," Ro said. "We'll need to act fast. Lieutenant Nix, prepare a scouting mission. We need to find this weapon before the Calvo do." As Zara left to carry out his orders, Ro turned back to the Krylon ambassador. "We may need your help. If you're willing, I'd like you to join us in this mission." The ambassador's eyes shimmered with determination. "The Calvo have brought suffering to many. We will stand with you, Captain Caden." The Orion and a small fleet of Allied ships set course for the Veil Nebula, a place of legend and danger. As they approached, the nebula's swirling mists and pulsing lights cast an eerie glow over their hulls. The sensors picked up strange readings, anomalous energy signatures, spatial distortions, remnants of battles long past. Ro stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the nebula's heart. "This place is like a tomb," he muttered, his voice barely audible. Zara, standing beside him, nodded. "A graveyard of ancient empires. If the Calvo weapon is here, we need to find it quickly." The fleet entered the nebula, their path lit by the faint glow of distant stars. The ships navigated through the debris of shattered worlds and derelict vessels, remnants of civilizations that had fallen to the void. It was a sobering sight, a reminder of the fragility of life in the cosmos. Suddenly the sensors flared to life. "Captain, we're picking up a signal," Zara reported. "It's coming from a structure on the far side of the nebula. It matches the Calvo energy signature." RHO's heart quickened. "That's it. Set a course, and be ready for anything." As the Orion and its allies approached the source of the signal, they found themselves facing a massive, ancient construct, a monolithic structure of alien design, covered in strange runes and pulsing with energy. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. The Krylon ambassador studied the structure, his eyes reflecting the light. "This is it," he said. "The Calvo called it the Nexus. It was a place of great power, a source of knowledge and weaponry." Ro ordered the fleet to maintain a defensive perimeter. "We need to explore this place, find out what we're dealing with. Lieutenant Nix, prepare a team. We're going in." As they entered the Nexus, Ro felt a sense of awe and dread. The walls were lined with ancient glyphs telling stories of battles and gods, of creation and destruction. The air was thick with energy, a palpable force that made the hair on his skin stand on end. In the heart of the Nexus, they found it, the Calvo weapon, a crystalline sphere pulsating with a dark light. It was a thing of beauty and terror, a relic of a forgotten era, holding the power to reshape worlds. "Captain," Zara whispered, her voice filled with reverence, "what do we do?" Ro stared at the sphere, his mind racing. The power to end worlds, to rewrite history, lay before him. But with great power came great responsibility. "We take it," he said, his voice firm. "But we use it wisely. This weapon won't fall into the wrong hands. Humanity will safeguard it for the good of all." As they prepared to secure the sphere, Ro knew that this was only the beginning. The Calvo were out there, and they would come for what they believed was theirs. But with the Nexus in their hands, humanity had the chance to turn the tide, to forge a future where they were not merely survivors, but leaders of a new era. The return journey from the Veil Nebula was fraught with tension. The ancient weapon they had secured, an artifact of immense power, rested in the heart of the Orion, under the heaviest guard. Ro could feel its presence, a constant thrum in the back of his mind, as if it were alive, aware of its new captors. As they neared Earth, the fleet received a distress call. The Calvo had launched a surprise attack on the outer colonies, striking with a ferocity they had not seen before. It was a message, a declaration of war. Ro knew they had to act fast. The Calvo were desperate, and desperation made them dangerous. With the Nexus in their possession, they had the power to end this conflict, but using it was a risk. They needed to understand it, to ensure it did not backfire. "Contact the Council," Ro ordered. "We need to convene a meeting, and get Dr. Kess. If anyone can help us understand this weapon, it's her." The Council meeting was tense, the room filled with the leaders of Earth and its allies. The news of the Calvo's aggression had rattled even the most seasoned veterans. As Ro presented the Nexus, the Council members stared in awe and fear. "This is the weapon the Calvos seek," Ro explained. "With it we could turn the tide of this war, but we must be cautious. We do not yet know its full capabilities or the consequences of its use." Dr. Alara Kess stood beside him, her expression grave. "The Nexus is a relic of a bygone era, a source of unimaginable power. If we can harness it, it could provide us with the means to defend ourselves. But if we misuse it, it could spell our doom." The Council debated. voices rising in argument. Some argued for its immediate use, to strike back at the Calvo with everything they had. Others urged caution, fearing the unknown. Roe listened, his mind weighing the options. Finally, he raised his hand, calling for silence. "I understand the risks," he said, "but we cannot let fear dictate our actions. The Calvo will not stop until they reclaim what they believe is theirs. We must be ready to face them, to defend our home." He turned to Dr. Kess. "Ilara, I need you to continue your research. Find a way to harness the Nexus's power safely. We have to be ready for whatever comes." Dr. Kess nodded, determination in her eyes. "I'll do my best, Captain, but remember, power is a double-edged sword. We must wield it wisely." As the meeting adjourned, Roe felt the weight of the decision on his shoulders. The fate of Earth, of humanity, rested on the choices they made. The Calvo were a formidable enemy, but with the Nexus they had a chance to turn the tide. The Calvo fleet arrived at Earth in a blaze of light and fury. Their ships, sleek and menacing, filled the skies, casting a shadow over the cities below. The United Terran Defense Force was ready, their ships poised for battle, but this time they had something more. Roe stood on the bridge of the Orion, his gaze fixed on the enemy fleet. Beside him, Dr. Ilara Kess monitored the Nexus, her fingers dancing over the controls. The weapon pulsed with energy, a living entity ready to unleash its power. "The Calvo are hailing us," Lieutenant Zara Nix reported. "On screen," Roe ordered.